So it seems that the weather has finally settled down a little bit this morning and the sky is brighter. It's been quite a challenging weekend with the very high winds and rain. Not good weather for going out at all. Almost a scourge upon the land. Many trees down, my fence is down. But I suppose those things, that kind of weather is useful also because unsafe structures are destroyed and must be strengthened. And also we have a sense of relief when the inclement weather ceases and we returned to the glory of God and the beauty of his skies. I know a lot of people say that there is weather manipulation, and I say that also. But ultimately, these things are in the hand of God. They're not in the hand of HARP or any kind of government agency. I try to remember that. So I'm coming up, this is my 17th day of abstinence from nicotine. And I hadn't realized it was going to be such a challenge when I set off. And I don't really know why exactly I set off. I mean, I suppose there were various reasons, but it just came upon me to do that. And I've been bargaining with myself as to whether I can renege on my pledge in any way. And of course I probably can, but I'm reluctant to do so. I really want to I suppose I'm testing the spirit to see whether I can be, I don't want to say pure because that'll take a little bit more, but at least in this respect, to remove this poison from my life and see what happens. And although they say that, in 2 or 3 days, there's no more of the substance in your body, you remove it. What I'm finding is that I'm getting ill because I think my body and mind are adjusting somehow, struggling to habituate the absence of this stimulant. And I've got all sorts of physical symptoms and sicknesses that have come upon me. And I'm in a bit of a sorry state, I suppose, maybe physically and also mentally. It doesn't seem to be quite so inspiring as I'd hoped. And now, as the day draws near when I shall move up to Blackpool, my new house, not the day exactly, but the month, shall we say, is drawing closer. I'm beset by fears of that. Inevitably, I suppose. I remove the familiar and step into the dark, really. That's the price of making a change like that. But the main thing that people would say, I think, is that you're no longer frequenting people that you know, and I do know quite a lot of people here. But I'm on more nodding acquaintance with them all, really, than close relationships. Nodding acquaintance. And so it doesn't really matter. I'm on nodding acquaintance with people in the pub as well. I think removing my pipe smoking isn't going to help develop those relationships, because most of them were forged outside the pub, smoking. You can't just talk to anybody in the pub. It's impolite. But if you're both smoking outside, then a conversation can be struck up sometimes, and I had some good ones. But latterly there were none, and maybe that's why I decided to stop. And also the cost of the thing and all the various downsides that it has. But I think it takes rather longer than just 3 days or 3 weeks, perhaps. I think it's going to be something that will take several months to become habituated to a life without any kind of, whatever it is, whether it's coffee or nicotine or whatever, anything that's addictive. And somebody corrected me on my definition of addictive when I mentioned marijuana as being an addictive substance. And the correction said that it was habituating rather than addicting. And I do think that's right, actually. From my experience of addiction, it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same as reaching for a cigarette. It's a different activity. Of course, some people do use that by mixing it with tobacco. So if you do that, then you can't tell what's working. You have to cease that, and I think probably you have to cease smoking it also. Probably it will be better, because smoke is smoke, but it's a different smoke, you see. It doesn't have the same addictive pressure that nicotine has. Smoking the pipe, which is the best way to smoke if nobody's ever tried it, I would fill the pipe with my favourite tobacco, which is Clan, and then maybe smoke that the first time, and it would be a fair smoke. And then, before it had gone completely down, I would refill it again with Clan, and it was a warm pipe, and it already smoked. And that second pipe was the very best one, I thought, in terms of taste. It used to be very nice. And there's a hit. People say, well, you don't inhale if you smoke a pipe. You do. You inhale less, or I inhaled less. Just a little bit at the end of the draw. And then the smoke is flushing through the mucous membranes in the mouth and in the nose, of course, and nicotine is rushing in to the blood and causing that buzz, that hit, that is part and parcel of the addiction. My experience of smoking marijuana, which of course is illegal in this country, so I avoid it as far as possible, is quite different. There's a rush, but it takes you to a different place, not to the place of addiction. You could say to the place of evasion, perhaps, of reality, or the perception of a different reality, a muted reality, a changed reality. To me, a more interesting reality. But it's not the same as the nicotine hit. It's quite different. Now, when I was a young man and foolish, as though that state had changed even this day, I used to live in a squat in Oxford with some other fellows and a couple of women also. And they were the thoughtless days and the rich days, really, very blessed. It would have been in the late 1970s, I suppose, 1975, this sort of time. And we just used to listen to music and smoke dope. That was the main activity. Although I always worked, I always had a job. Unlike most of my peers, not many people did work, but I used to like to work. I preferred it. I didn't want the government subsidy money, although I took it from time to time, but I preferred to have a job. I don't know why, it was in me. And so it was in those days. And we used to start the day whenever we could, whenever there was a good moment, and there quite often was. We would gather together the people from the different houses in the squat. So there would be maybe 5 or 6 together, and somebody would be designated to build the chillum, and great expertise was applied and great strength of marijuana and different strains. It was mainly hashish that we had rather than marijuana. And there was great attention paid to the flavor and the type of tobacco to mix it with. And there were expert builders. And then it would be passed around the group. And whoever lit it would have the biggest, I suppose, initial hit. And that's how we destroyed our health in those days, because we were smoking so much tar, I suppose you could say. But we used to get absolutely blasted first thing in the morning, and then we would go out into the parks and search for fallen trees and wood to carry back to burn in our fires. We were very blessed. And in those days I walked with the shon of a current earl in this country, who is the current earl, I should say. And that's very interesting to me that I should know this man. I knew him when he was 16 and we walked together, and I enjoyed his company then. And I can't imagine that he's changed all that much, although of course he would be far older than 16 now, although a little bit younger than I, because I think I was about 19 when we met. And he used to walk with us as well in our morning walks and our morning chillum rituals. He was very keen on those things, and a very bright and witty young man, a likeable fellow, I thought, very likeable. And he always he had a very good way of mimicking the upper classes and their behavior and their speech. And he did it really well. He didn't hide the fact that he was from that lineage, but he underscored at all times that it was of no interest to him whatsoever. I don't think he was feigning that lack of interest. He believed it. And he was only interested in learning tree surgery. He wanted to work with trees. He admired trees greatly. And he didn't like smoking tobacco. At a certain point, he turned around and said, "It's a mug's game." I'll always remember him saying that. Tobacco smoking is a mug's game, and I think he ceased from that time on. He had quite a strong personality. And then he was whisked from our midst by mysterious circumstances, which I might have already related, or I've certainly written about. But so it was in the olden days. I grew up alongside this fellow and many other people who are just as significant. But it was just curious that this is a man, of course, today of tremendous power and influence, you could say. God bless now.